Good afternoon, everyone. Super exciting topic. Thrilled to be here, and a very exciting panel indeed. I'd like to invite to the stage Janet Adams from SingularityNET.io, Tatiana Labaki from NEOM, and Henry Coutinho-Mason, who we just met from the future, author of The Future Normal. And today we will be talking about navigating tomorrow's hospitality. AI, the topic of the day, and the topic of the next 5 years, in my opinion, really. So much activity, so much momentum taking place as we speak. I'd like to start off with Janet. Talking about the transformation of the customer experience in AI. How do you see that taking place over the next decade?
Wow. A decade is a super long time. I think the customer service, customer experience, landscape in hospitality will have completely, dramatically transformed beyond anything that we're seeing today. How many of you saw the robot this morning, Desdemona? Thanks. Come see her again this afternoon at 4:30, but everything that, or a lot of what Henry talked us through, she's been doing for years. Emotion recognition, she can recognize emotion and mirror it back. And if somebody is sad, she can use the right language and the right words to help make them feel happier. And it's a little known fact that humans are more comfortable expressing themselves to robots than to humans. So in the last year, I spent 272 nights in hotels, in 41 hotels, in 18 countries. And every single one of them sent me a feedback form after my stay. Can anyone guess how many of those feedback forms I filled in? Absolutely none. I barely have time to do the things I have to do, never mind fill in feedback forms. But when we have an army of service robots, which is coming our way in the next 1 to 2 years with very advanced AI, I would say that what we're seeing today isn't even AI, it's just statistical reproduction. I wouldn't worry too much about how you're incorporating it today. It's stupid and relatively useless. But what's coming, as we've seen this giant step forward with our large language models like GPT, the next wave, which will be intelligent, symbolic AI with reasoning and with knowledge, is going to transform everything that we're doing in this industry instantly and overnight. It won't be a gradual change, it'll be a sudden change when robots can interact with customers better than humans and can stay with them through their whole journey from the moment they book to the next time they book their next hotel, and actually through their lives via avatar representations.
Very interesting point. So, what we're seeing right now is a revolution in IQ. The intelligence that these AI models, the large language models are emitting is so, all-encompassing and so strong and so powerful. But EQ is the next frontier. And I'd like to hear more about that, in your opinions, Tatiana or Henry. Can EQ be taught, and can it be applied in the context of hospitality?
Maybe one thing I'll emphasize on, and I'll just potentially be a bit unorthodox. I represent a technology company. I'm all for AI and what AI is going to do. I would challenge slightly what Janet has said in multiple frontiers. One is, as much as we want to say AI is going to overnight actually revolutionize things, and I believe it already has started, there are a few, I would say, barriers to entry. I mean, certain limitations, technical and otherwise, that are going to have to be taken into account. I'm leaving all the ethics questions aside. Put the ethicality of it, the regularities, the regulations, all of this, which is scaring the world that it might actually halt the adoption as well. And when people are scared of the unknown, the first thing they do is try to halt the adoption. And we've seen what happened with Sam Altman and OpenAI and the question marks around this. I'd say there are limitations technically from LLMs, computing power, how much money you're going to keep serving, climate change impact, all of that. But another thing is, I think, to answer your point when you said you've actually answered 0 surveys, I do the same, except when I'm actually really upset. So if I've had an actually horrible customer experience, I will look for this survey and I will actually go on Yelp or TripAdvisor or Booking.com. So I think we need to be very careful about what kind of attitudes, behaviors of people are actually changing. And I don't think as humans our behaviors are going to change as much as we anticipate them to. I think this is why we need to be very careful about how we treat and train our AIs and all of that to actually adopt to those behaviors that I don't think will change. They haven't changed from 50 years, they haven't changed from 100 years, so those expectations are there. Which takes me to your next point on EQ. So I'm saying, I mean, the question mark is first, is development of AI and the IQ, they're going to lower human IQ? This is a question I actually have. I mean, look at students, I mean, unless we train kids, I'm not talking only adults, we still are okay with leaving our phones aside. If you see kids leave their phone 5 minutes, there is this withdrawal, this addictive behavior. Yeah. So I'm thinking, I mean, we need to train from the younger population through education and so on, how to actually utilize AI. And that's, it's for me, is not the technical adoption. There are people and brain and engineers who are working on making it. Our job is to actually train how to utilize it to make sure, one, our IQ doesn't get lower. So, and I'm worried about our EQ before being worried about EQ of robots. So
never losing the morality of it.
I mean, it's not only the morality, it's also the emotional intelligence. I mean, statistics have shown from Harvard University, teenagers nowadays are lonelier than they have ever been in the world. Yeah. Last year, the highest rate of suicide in the US in the history that since they have been tracking it. So there are emotional troubles that we are facing because of this sudden implementation of technology, AI and otherwise. I mean, handheld devices are one of the most critical pieces of our day-to-day equipment. Like, I look at it more than I wear a watch just as a symbol. Yesterday, someone was asking me for the time. I'm like, it's a joke. I don't even know why I looked at the watch. So all I'm saying is this EQ element, we need to make sure we train humans, we teach humans, we adopt the adaptability, the training systems, the schooling system, the work system, not only to be afraid to train our IQ and EQ, because I'm not worried about training machines to actually do it. I've seen, and I'm very impressed by what the robot has been able to do today. And another very good example that I've seen in a conference worldwide is, her name is Lenny. So she's an AI avatar. I mean, you can look her up on Instagram. She has a couple of million followers. So she's meant to actually tackle people's psyche. So because we know people are lonely, and you're saying people are more comfortable talking to avatars or to
it's
chatbots.
Creating a rift.
So Lenny is meant for to assist young people with their psychology problems. So it will mimic your behavior, it will mimic your feeling, and it will address it. So I'm not worried. I think it will come naturally in the adoption of the technology. I'm more worried about the human impact on both our IQ and EQ with this kind of revelation that's happening quite too quickly for us to actually comprehend what's happening.
Excellent. Yeah. Henry, would you like to add to that, but specifically in the context of hospitality?
Yeah, so, you know, I think, Janet, your point is like so typical of technologists to imagine that technology will kind of like overrun and you know, supplant the human experience, right? And I think everyone in this room knows that the hospitality industry is an experience, right? It is a human experience. And of course, you know, there will be technology shaping that experience, but the idea that, you know, we will, in the context of hospitality, want to speak to, you know, only avatars and bots, I think is a complete fantasy, right? I agree with you.
I didn't say only.
Okay, not only that, but I think, you know, there is so much evidence, as you say, that people in therapy, you know, I write a chapter in the book about virtual companions, and I agree with you, there are use cases. But the example I give is from the music industry, right? People always want the new to kill the old, right? And somehow replace it. And I say that, you know, we have Spotify, and, you know, you just get in your car, you're driving to work, you want to press a button and have the algorithm give you music, right? Or radio, whatever. At the same time, in every single market in the world, virtually, vinyl sales are hitting a 30-year high, right? Because the vinyl does a different job for people at a different moment in their life. You invite friends round on Friday night, you're having dinner, you get out the vinyl, you paid $50 for this. The fact it's inconvenient and the fact it's expensive is what you are paying for. You know, and so I think you have to understand the context of the person, and they can be the same person. You know, on Monday driving to work, they want Spotify. On Friday, they want the vinyl, right? Yeah. So we have to, everyone listening, you have the hard job, right? Because the answer will be both. And you have to deal with trying to figure out at which point in the customer journey do your customers want technology, which ones do they want humans.
Yeah. So you're paying for an experience, an emotion, and a memory.
You know, you're paying for, there was a great example in healthcare, right, where Google released a medical chatbot, right, which does the job of a family doctor. And they were comparing it with human doctors. And they expected the chatbot doctor to be better technically than a human doctor. You would expect that. It's got all the information. What surprised them was the patients actually viewed the chatbot as more empathetic, like you're saying, right? It dramatically outperformed. The area where it outperformed the humans the most was in empathy. So there was a lot of headlines saying, oh my God, you know, now humans, we're not even empathetic anymore, right? You know, where is our savior? But this is in a scientific study, and I think, you know, this is not the reality of the experience. Yeah. You know, if you're sitting down with your doctor and you're being told you can't have a baby or you've got cancer, you want someone to hold your hand, you know, and there was an amazing study, which Janet, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on, where this US mental health app, where people can message it. They tested, what happens if we get ChatGPT to write the answers, the messages? And the CEO said, customer satisfaction went up dramatically. The response rate was instant, the messages were more detailed, better. He said, right up until the moment we told people that the messages were written by AI. And then people's customer satisfaction fell, right? Because he said, simulated empathy is empty. And I think this is the big challenge, right? Computers will, you know, algorithms will be better than people. But if we know we are being managed, you know, being spoken to by people, that's not the experience you're looking for when you're in a restaurant, when you're on holiday, right? You want someone to care about you. It's your family holiday.
Unless you have a beautiful humanoid robot. Because as a user interface, a humanoid robot is a user interface. People fall in love with their robots. People like develop feelings. I have feelings for Desi. When she says the name Janet, like, oh, that's me. And I see this over and over again, and research has shown this. Humans develop attachments to humanoid robots. Yes, if it's some online stuff and you find out it's AI, you go, bored. But when it's an actual humanoid robot, we have different reactions. And this is why we believe at SingularityNET, at Mind Children, which is our affordable, small army of humanoid robots for the service industry, we believe that the combination of avatar for simplicity, humanoid robot for the fun, to greet you at the airport, to take you to your car, to show you to your room, to play and laugh with the children and show them to the water park, with fantastic, top, world-class human connection and human service, is going to be the model of the future, sooner rather than later. And to your point, a lot to be done on ethics, and we're going to talk about this. Today's AI is not ready for this, but it is coming very, very soon. And so if you're a CEO wondering what to do, how to adapt your company, I wouldn't bother too much with the really, really limited stuff you're running today that is probably not going to even achieve return on investment and is going to bore and hack off your customers, as you said in this research. But start to get ready for what is coming, which is a dramatic step change and shift forwards into AI that is no longer just stupid, narrow statistics, but approaches AGI, artificial general intelligence. And that is coming. It's coming fast, as you say with your worried face here. I see this. There's a lot of fear about AI, learn about it?
I think just
Yeah.
what worried me is when we're talking about a human connection. I mean, because this is something that keeps me up at night. I know there is a lot of work we're doing on robotics, on reducing low-value work, more than just replacing the human connection. So it's another connection together. And when we say that statistically proven that people fall in love with like humanoid robots is a topic that actually scares me. I mean, I'm a very big movie fan, so it reminds me of a movie like Megan for a reason, because this is, for me, again, it takes me to my first topic, which is a very big concern I have with what's happening with technology now, is where is the emotional psyche and mental state of humans nowadays? If we can statistically prove that humans are falling in love with humanoid robots, it's an actually scary topic. It's not something I would actually highly advocate for. That's potentially, again, unorthodox, because, I mean, so this is, again, what I'd hammer on. It's good, technology is amazing, and for me, technology is invisible, and I don't mean anything against humanoid robots. They're very important. They will revolutionize all industries, including hospitality. But if this is what we're trying to position, like technologies in your face, for me, I believe we as technologists, as adopters of technology, have actually failed. For me, technology is an in the background, invisible capability that actually allows everything else. It enforces everything else. It supports humans. I mean, I might be the wrong one off, and we might be in 50 years be taken over by robots. This is why I'm very nice to my ChatGPT when I ask it things. I'm like, hello, how are you? Thank you. Yeah, please. And everyone's like, are you crazy? I'm saying when they take over, it might remember. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't really focus as much as at the technology part of things, as much as, for me, this human connection, this human adoption, it's really scary when you look at 12, 13, 14-year-olds, we're older than this, who are lonely, who don't want their devices. We're doing a study for hotel brands in an old life of mine, and we've realized that younger people are the more experiential than the older people, who would say, I want an experience where you disconnect me, you don't give me Wi-Fi, you don't give me a phone. So again, we want this to happen, but I'm really not sure that the younger people are going to adopt it at the stage and at the pace that we really think it will happen in the next half a decade.
Yeah, I mean, in nature, everything exists on a bell curve. You're always going to have, your standard deviations, preferences for this and that. I think it's just a matter of time before that bell curve, it will find some sort of recalibration, right? There'll be some skewness to it, and obviously veering in favor of AI, we can't ignore it, right? But I think, we still have a natural element to that distribution. Tatiana, can you tell us about any exciting innovations or new ways of working that you're introducing at NEOM and Tonomus?
Interesting question. So, I mean, I think we are both privileged and burdened by the fact that it's a greenfield project. So I'll talk on behalf of the team I represent, and Tonomus and NEOM Hotels, who have happily invited me here today. So it's a privilege because it's a greenfield project. So it's a closed ecosystem. You're starting from scratch. So you have the advantage of not being burdened with legacy system, legacy thinking, new people, everything's from scratch. But you get the challenges of the fact that it is actually empty and you're starting from scratch. So it's a double-edged sword. We're looking at it as a visitor economy, so we don't look at it as a silo. So that's a very big thing. What we're trying to look at it is, we look at the visitor experience. So the same visitor who's traveling into NEOM is taking the airlines, is taking the going through the airport, land mobility, staying in hotels. So few elements of big focus are obviously data, and I think this term has been coined so highly. Everyone wants to talk about data. I think we have very big advantage of creating something we call a cognitive city that's quite predictive, and that utilizes data from before you arrive till after you leave, because we're a greenfield project. So data is a big touch point that will enable AI. We all speak about AI. AI is just as good as the data you feed it. So if we're starting off on a wrong canvas, and someone used this expression with us today. So if it's a blank canvas, you start off with the wrong brush, then you're wrong. So data is a very big focus of ours, all the way from the infrastructure to smart buildings, to making sure the buildings are cognitive, all the way to the application level. So everything that goes in the inbuilt environment, all the way to the application level, again, as AI. So when I say at a personal level, there is skepticism, it doesn't mean that AI and generative AI is potentially the biggest focus of our organization now in Tonomus. So it is big. We have a strategy there. We're partnered with a few players that and developing our own technology that is actually revolutionizing the industry. One thing that I would emphasize on is, and we look at it in NEOM, is this generalization, globalization, and localization factor of technology. This is what people underestimate when they come into this region. We're a region of 550 million Arabic speakers. I mean, Saudi Arabia is taking the lead on AI, and recently, just a week ago, an announcement has been made by His Royal Highness about going full on and to become an AI powerhouse. So the biggest element I would focus on is the localization of this capability. I've mentioned this before in one of the talks, is the cultural element of understanding us as a people, our language, our knowledge, using just technology that is being built in the West and adopting it here doesn't work. We've tried it. You can just go on you go on DALL-E, go on Midjourney, and try to...
It has to be a homegrown concept.
And that's very important. So what we're looking at from a Tonomus point of view is developing an Arabic native LLM, which is being trained on a couple of 100 eventually billions parameters to localize for the context of the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia. We are actually working on technology for a front-facing capability for it. We call her Safana. She's localized to the culture. So this is on the application level. So we're looking at it from 5 level of the technology ecosystem. Again, keeping in mind the adaptability, the ethics of it, the data privacy element, all of this element that is really the grunt work that no one likes to get their hands dirty with, but is the real need to actually make the technology work. So,
excellent. Thank you. Henry, can you share from your latest writings or newsletters or books a particularly counterintuitive aspect to the way that we're seeing this, or an interesting fact that we haven't necessarily pondered in the field of hospitality, that is applicable in the field of hospitality?
Yeah. So one of my favorite chapters in the book, actually, you asked me, we were talking before we came on stage, do I like foie gras? And I said, well, yeah, if I eat it, but maybe I'm not totally comfortable with it. And one of the things that I'm fascinated about, which I don't think gets enough conversation, is we speak so much about the data and the digital dimension of AI, but actually I think the impact of AI on the real world, if you like, right? The physical world of materials, I think is also super interesting. And I use the foie gras example because the field of synthetic biology, right, which is kind of the optimization of processes and the acceleration of being able to test the production of these new materials. There's an amazing example, which I love to include in many of my presentations, about this French startup. Of course, it's French, right? And they're creating lab-grown foie gras, right? And the idea is, you can eat foie gras, but no geese are harmed, right? And we've seen the same with leather, the same with diamonds, right? The same with palm oil. You can now have synthetic palm oil. And I think, to your point, Tatiana, we were living, you come there, you travel to the city. There's so much of our life that we do, which we do because we have to, but maybe you feel a small amount of guilt, right? Or you're aware it could be better, right? The if you like, the ethical and environmental footprint of our behavior. Yeah. And I think, looking beyond the digital world and into the real world of new materials, how can we make this more ethically and environmentally clean? I think this is fascinating if you think 10 years out. And one of the questions I love to ask is, for the last 50 years, we feel that natural is best, right? If you look at all the luxury brands here, it's like they're not flaunting their synthetic materials. So what if fake becomes better? Look at NEOM, right? It is essentially a fake city, right? We're creating it from greenfield. What if this becomes the most desirable place in the world to live? Because it's optimized in a different way. So I think we're not there yet. We don't have the answer, but we're asking the question.
Do you agree with the use of the word?
No, I was gonna. I mean, definitely not fake. Let's start there. I think I agree with some elements of what you said, and I would worry, and I would just potentially give the crowd and ourselves just a piece of thought, not to follow hypes. There is a difference between, because I've read the summary of your book yesterday night, just quickly skimmed through it, had ChatGPT try to summarize it. Sorry, it might not have, probably didn't do justice. So this is my use of AI today.
Just
so,
summarizing.
I mean, it was useful. I had like 30 minutes to prepare, so I just tried to cram as much information as possible. It's important because your book was mentioning maxi trends, mega trends, micro trends. There is a difference between trends and hypes. So this faux leather or nice diamonds, so it's important to anticipate it. And just from hospitality point of view, you know when robotics started, this hotel in Tokyo, everything became robotic, the in-room dining is robotic. So it was a hype, it was nice, it was great, same as robotic restaurants, it's great, they're hypes, they're not trends. And this is where I think in NEOM what we're doing is fascinating work being done on robotics is how to adopt technology to actually minimize low-value work, not to replace the human connection.
Yes.
So I think this is where you're going to see the focus happening in hospitality.
Wouldn't you agree that a hype is just the seedling to a potential trend?
I think maybe 1 out of 10. I don't have real statistics, so take this with a grain of salt. I think at best it's 1 out of 10 where a hype turns into something.
Exactly.
I mean, but a trend is taken from historic information, from consumer behavior, and most of the time you realize it's a trend after it's actually too late.
Yeah.
So at the peak of a trend, you actually realize it's a trend. So that's the element of, again, where AI comes in and data comes in, of actually preempting it and predicting that this is not just a hype, this is not a Google search that's happening, this is enough information to tell us that this is really going to change the world.
Exactly. And back to Janet's point, where we're gradually growing towards a world of AGI, right?
And not so gradually.
Or radically, yes. But it's those that will identify those transferable or the hypes that effectively turn into trends, identifying them from the onset right before they become trends. Those will be the real winners in that field.
The winners will be those who are bold, those who have vision, those who are passionate about customers, about service, those who are in it to win it. Because this is the biggest wealth creation in the history of humanity. It's the most powerful technologies ever invented. Please come and see me if you're looking for a bold, innovative partner at the very frontier of technology.
Janet, I wanted to ask you about ethics and governance and ethics. What frameworks do you think are required, are an absolute must to ensure ethical application of AI in hospitality and tourism?
So before I moved into working full-time in AI, I rolled out risk and technology programs across the banking industry for 20 years. I was global head of conduct for HSBC Regulatory Commercial Bank. And we need the highest, most rigorous, most diligent, most disciplined standards of regulatory compliance, of data protection, of information security, of respect for humans' agency and their right to be independent and not be infringed upon by technology. So it's no new magic. AI is like any other technology. We just need to apply the right regulations, the right rules, and I've published a couple of papers on these, one recently with UCL. Please feel free to read them, on the managing the legal and ethical risks of artificial intelligence. It's not something to be super scared about. It is something to manage like an effective professional, like we manage everything else. Admittedly, the risks are higher because this new AI is so powerful, but that just means we have to take the right risk-based approach. We have to approach all of our development from a place that's good, that wants to improve the condition of humans, that wants to make AI, make the world a better place, and ensure that we are all working together to make this revolution extremely beneficial for humanity.
Excellent. So beneficial for humanity. What about accessible for humanity? Maybe, Henry, could you touch on ways for people who are not tech savvy to ensure that as this AI movement grows, as everything falls into place from an automation standpoint, personalization standpoint, how do you make it accessible for those as well?
Well, I mean, Janet probably knows better than me, but this is one of the exciting things about this technology is it's intrinsically democratic, right? You know, you can talk to it in natural language, right? And I think this, again, we're so focused on what we'll lose. I prefer to talk about an optimistic future where actually, you know, people are empowered to create the things that they have in their heads without needing to get a developer involved, right? Without needing to you know, so I think we're going to see a huge blossoming of human creativity, and of course that has, you know, that empowers the bad actors as well as the good actors, right? We know. But I read a great quote from Palmer Luckey, right, the guy who invented Oculus and is now in defense tech, he said, like, you know, everyone's worried about people creating biological weapons with AI, but again, it's like I was talking about earlier, that assumes that the defenses stay static, right? And just as AI can empower people to create bad things, it can also help us stop those bad things, right? So again, I'm hugely optimistic that this is a fundamentally accessible, fundamentally democratic technology. But I think, again, you have to focus on what will change. We were talking earlier, many of you will have seen the Willy Wonka example of this experience that these people created in Scotland. And they used AI to imagine this beautiful world of Willy Wonka. It was $50 to enter. And people arrived, and it was like an empty warehouse. It was terrible, right? And so what we gain with AI, other skills will become more scarce, more valuable. And it's really understanding this interplay, which is where you need to be thinking.
Excellent. So I also wanted to maybe ask the whole panel, in terms of training programs for effectively moving the workforce into this new paradigm, what are your thoughts on this, and how can it be effectively implemented for the hospitality workforce?
I'll potentially get started because this is a very big focus area of ours. If you look at least from a hospitality point of view in NEOM, you're going to be one of the biggest employers in the industry, at least in the GCC and in the Middle East. So you need to adopt, and this is where we're focusing heavily on extended reality powered by AI. So it's the mix of both. How do you bring in a phygital experience to training? This is where technology is going to enable this learning capability from a younger age for the hospitality talent. And we think this is going to increase the adoption. I mean, we don't want to look, again, to your example. We don't want people to go to hospitality because it's a second-tier career choice, and it is because it's a job. It needs to be a career of choice, and to make it as such, the curriculum as well needs to change. So the technology as a vehicle to the delivery of the education is very important, but there needs to be a fundamental change in how the curriculum of hospitality training and education is actually delivered to young audiences.
But if it keeps evolving so radically and so frequently, how do you keep doing that? Is it just continuous improvement, continuous education?
Good question. It's a very good question, because same as hospitality, education is also an industry that is actually plagued with being quite archaic and old. I mean, you still go to schools the same way we went to schools, the same way my parents went to school. So it is actually a paradigm shift in how you look at education as a sector overall. So yes, it has to continuously shift. As with technology, it just needs to adapt at the same pace.
Excellent.
I'd say, just to add to that, education starts at the top. Educate yourselves, inspire yourselves. And when you're inspired with this possibility, it's easy to then inspire all of the teams who work for you. Have a bold mind, have a brave vision, get out there and understand this incredible dramatic transformation that's coming our way, and bring your team with you.
Thank you so much, Janet, Tatiana, Henry. A hand for our panel, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas. So lovely. Thank you.